The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, welcome to All You Can Eat. It's the podcast about deliciousness. I'm Rob Rosenthal, your host, as always, on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock on the East Coast. And I come to you tonight, as I often do, live. So, the thing about live is, I've said it before, I enjoy the live because you never know. I have a plan for us this evening. I can tell you about it, but you never really know what's going to happen. And that's why I like the whole live thing. First of all, I begin by welcoming you back if you're returning, and hello to the new folks who are tuning in. Thank you for being here. Tonight, it's a recommendation show. I say that because I am a guy who kind of recommends things for a living. Honestly, that's what it comes down to. I spent a lot of time moving around the world. I went and got some training in the culinary field, and now I basically am able to write about and speak about, and in this case, podcast about things that I've experienced, which I am happy to recommend. Only the best for you people, and with full disclosure always. If somebody's sending me stuff, I tell you, I got nothing to hide, and that's really the way to go. Full disclosure. I will start off by telling you that I come to you, as I said, from New York City, New York, where today it reached 50 degrees. Today being January the 15th of the year 2020. And if you can get yourself a 50-degree day in New York City in the middle of the winter, January the 15th, you take advantage of it. That's how I look at it. I went outside. I was out for, an hour and a half doing, working out there. Because it's like a bonus day. Now, I say 50 degrees, and I know that there are people in other parts of the world, certainly, and the country even, who don't think of 50 degrees in the same way that I do. For me, I see sunny, I see 50, I see in the middle of January, I'm outside. If you're in Southern California, if you are in southern Florida, if you are in some place south of, the equator, basically. I don't know how that works seasonally. Let's see, December, we're coming into summer. They're in the middle of summer in the south, in the southern equator. But anyway, the point is there are parts of the world that hear 50 degrees. They think, that's chilly. No, it's not chilly. It's a beautiful day here in town, and glad to be here with you live. On tonight's show, the recommendation show, probably... I will say this, I do the recommendation show once every 20 or 30 shows. Literally everything tonight is about recommending things to you rather than commenting, rather than interviewing a fascinating guest, which we do on occasion. Tonight I'm coming to you solo with a series of recommendations. I'm going to start off with a recommendation about a particular type of pizza, which, everyone's favorite food. I want to talk to you a little bit about Korean food and Korean spices. I'm going to recommend some items that I pick up at Costco, where I go weekly, and within my own family, I am known as the Costco Ho, because I do spend an inordinate amount of time in that store, and I'm in love with that. And I should be a spokesman for the operation, but they don't have spokesmen, they don't pay for advertising, and frankly, they don't need it. I have a particular pan that I've been using now for a year that I like a lot. I'm going to recommend that later in the show. Then I think we talk a little bit about vegetables, because I look at 2020, I look at the decade to come, and I think of it as the decade of the vegetable. I mean, there's just a lot of talk about vegetables out there. And I'll end off with a couple of other, tidbits. But that essentially is the nature of tonight's show. If you want to call in, there's a number somewhere. You would think that would be right in front of me when you need it. 800 800-508-5431. I think the lines are open, and if they are, and you want to ask any kind of question of me, 800-508-5431. I don't know. We'll try. Right. So let me just start off with the whole pizza thing. And again, I mean, I look at pizza as being the greatest food in the world. I come to you having eaten at what now appears to be 4,000 restaurants around the world. I somewhere along the way picked up a professional culinary degree, and I'm telling you that there's nothing I'd rather have than a nice slice of pizza. I happen to be lucky in that I live in New York City, New York, and have for the last however many years, 40, where we happen to have a selection of outstanding pizza product, which is not to say that it's the best in the world, but I mean, it's certainly in the conversation, whether you are in New York or whether you're in New Haven, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Arizona, California, whether you start to talk about Italy. We get some great pizza here. Now, that's not the revelation. The revelation is that this past Saturday night, I went out with my wife to an Italian place that we've been going for 22 years. There's nothing really, I think, in going out to restaurants, there's nothing that I appreciate more than going to a place that you've been going to for 2 decades and you're still happy with it, happy with the food. I mean, like, that's probably too rare, in my opinion. But we go into a restaurant that we've been going to for 22 years and ordered the same thing that we've been ordering for 22 years, which is a pizza that they make with, as every pizza does, as every pizza, restaurant, pizza place, pizza whatever, you get to choose. And my thing is, this place used to do what they called kind of a chicken parm pizza or chicken pizza, but in any case, it was like little bites of chicken parmesan that were placed on the pizza. They don't do it anymore. And anyway, but what they still do is they still do a shrimp pizza. And the point of this story is only to say that if you haven't had pizza with seafood on it, and you happen to be someone that likes seafood, it's a no-brainer. It's brilliant when done well. And by seafood, I mean certainly fresh shrimp. Cooked into the cheese on a pizza dough. I mean, kind of you can't go wrong. When that's done properly, great. But when we talk about seafood on pizza, if you haven't had like a clam pie, I would put that on the list. If you're a person that likes seafood, if you're a person that likes clams, if you have not had a pizza with clams on it, you got to put that on your list. Sometimes they just chop up the clams and throw those on. Usually there's garlic involved. Great. Sometimes you can get it so that they're literally putting the whole clam and the shell on the pizza. You take the clam out yourself. And here I'm thinking of Zupardi's in West Haven, Connecticut as an example. But clams on pizza are a thing, and they're a delicious thing. And I've also had, in the world of seafood on pizza, Beckway. Wow, I don't know how that name came into my head. I was very far away on the island of Mystique and was told that if we got on a boat and boated to the island of Beckway, we would find the bar/restaurant right by the marina that did a lobster pizza. And we made that trip. I hear lobster pizza on a boat to Beckway. I'll do that. Long story short, whether it's lobster, whether it is shrimp, whether it is clams, put that on your list. Now, that said, by the way, I'll give you one little one little button on this story, which is that my wife was like, should we get some sausage on it too? I don't know why I'm laughing, but it's just funny to me. So it was like, yeah, I guess we should. Sure. That's that combination, incidentally, the idea of sausage and seafood is not unusual. It's a staple, I would say, in some ways, of Portuguese food, where they mix a sausage product with a seafood product. So we called the waitress back over and said, hey, if it's not too late, do sausage and shrimp. And she said, okay. And this is the best part of this. I'm telling you the story because this is the funny part of the story, right? When you I'm a purist, right? So I'm happy having a pizza plain. I don't need the extra stuff on it. But, here we were at one of our places for 22 years. I knew we were getting something on it, right? And shrimp sounded good. And then she's like, should we do sausage too? I said to the waitress, shrimp and sausage, no problem. And then before she left the table, I said, by the way, couple of heavy ingredients, so you could tell the chef that it's perfectly fine. And I didn't even finish the sentence. And she looked at me and she said, make it well done. And I said, wow, yeah, exactly right? Because I don't want like limp, pizza bread under the weight, crushing, soft, impotent bread without a crunch under the weight of the sausage and the shrimp. And that's what made the pizza outstanding, is that even with these two relatively heavy ingredients on top, you could still fold it and hold it, and the front corner of the pizza would maintain its structural integrity. And that is literally the first time in my life that I ever mentioned in one sentence the words pizza together with structural integrity. So, long story short, get yourself some seafood on your pizza if you haven't had it. Now, I segue to another eating experience that I had just yesterday with my Brazilian friend Joaquim, who was visiting from Rio de Janeiro. And he says, hey, meet for lunch. I said, yeah, and I recommended a place that has been on my list that I wanted to go. I guess I should tell you the name, to be fair, but I don't have it at the top of my head, but it's a Korean place that just opened. New York City happens to have on 32nd Street, west of Fifth Avenue. It's like, it's Koreatown. I mean, basically almost every operation on that street is Korean. Met at this place that just opened. It's an offshoot. It's the local branch of a South Korean food chain that specializes in dak galbi. What I will say about dak galbi is that I have a deep love affair with dak galbi. Now, for those of you who have been listening, I'm a huge fan of Korean food. I think it's the hottest trend in some ways. Well, it's not, because vegetables are, but Korean food has been exploding, I think, certainly, at least on the coasts. I mean, whether it's New York or LA, and somewhere in between. You're getting a lot of Korean food, you're getting a lot of Korean influence, you're getting David Chang, one of the great chefs in the world, is Korean. And has certainly helped popularize that cuisine. I'm a huge fan. I see that there's a place opening that specializes in dak galbi. I have a love affair with dak galbi, which essentially is a Korean stir fry of chicken. They marinate the chicken in your gochujang, which I've spoken to you about before. Gochujang is that kind of Korean red chili paste. It is savory. It is sweet. It is spicy. It's from fermented. It's a fermented condiment. It's made from chili powder, red chilies, and they use also in the gochujang to make it kind of a pasty. They use glutinous rice. They use a different kind of, powders, and there are enzymes in the thing that helps it ferment. All that stuff doesn't matter. The bottom line is that it's paste that you can cook with. Red pepper paste that is both savory and sweet and spicy all at once. So it's the kind of, the thing that's so brilliant about gochujang, I think, is it's the kind of spice or spice blend that you could if you like spicy food, say, and you had kids or friends that don't, you could make something with gochujang because it's like your introductory, I would say, spice for people that aren't so sure. Because while they'll get the heat, they also get the sweet and the savory, so it has a good taste and it's not too hot. I made something literally this past week, and I hear my wife say exactly these words. She said, my mouth is on fire, ... because now my mouth on fire is not necessarily a good thing. And she said, but in a good way. And that's gochujang for me. It's got heat, but in a good way. And I mentioned that because I'm backtracking and meta-talking my way through this, but I'm thinking I had a conversation with my own daughter who told me that she had bought red pepper flakes, and I said, well, do you like spicy food? Because for the first, 15 years of her life, she wasn't eating anything spicy. She hated spicy food. Now all of a sudden, she is buying red pepper flakes and liking food that has spice to it. And so what's the answer? I mean, where does that come? So what does that mean? It means that sometimes it takes 15, 20 years before your palate adjusts or acclimates to maybe a flavor or a spice level that it hadn't previously. I've been asked the question before. People say, I love spicy food. When can I give them to my kids? They're 1 year old. I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. Here's what I know. That if you grow up in a culture that serves spicy food, I'm guessing you're getting it fairly early on in your life, right? Whether you're eating spicy food in India or whether you're eating it in Mexico or in any other place that they serve like super spicy food normally in kind of very hot cultures. I'm guessing kids are starting on that stuff relatively early. Well, that's a long way around where we were, which was the whole subject of the gochujang and the fact that I was eating dak galbi, the chicken stir fry. In the chicken stir fry, which is made, well, some restaurants make it right at the table. Some will bring over the hot, pan and place it on a heated element on your table. Diced chicken, gochujang sauce. There's usually some sweet potatoes in the mix. There's some cabbage, some scallions, these fantastic rice noodles, chewy rice noodles, and it's a beautiful, beautiful dish. Dak galbi, Korean food. Gochujang you can buy these days pretty much at most supermarkets, especially if you go over to that Asian section. Then I'm going to throw onto the list as something to recommend. Again, this is like if you've had it, you go, okay, I like it, I don't like it, whatever. This is really more for people that haven't tried it, but one of the features of the Korean cuisine and Korean restaurant is kimchi. And kimchi is, which is a staple in Korean cuisine, is a side dish that they make with salted and fermented vegetables. So you have like cabbage, it may be radish, it could be onions, and there's seasoned. Whether it's cabbage or radish or whatever else they cut up. Vegetable-wise, generally speaking, is seasoned with some spring onions or scallions, garlic, ginger, and normally either gochujang or not more importantly, but alternatively gochugaru, which is the Korean red pepper flakes. And I'm a big fan of gochugaru. Korean red pepper flakes, relatively easy to get your hands on. I mean, if you're not shopping in the supermarket, a quick Amazon, boom, you get a thing of gochugaru, Korean red pepper flakes. You could use it instead of, your own kind of red pepper things. I'll tell you what it's really good on. A good handful of the gochugaru and like a teaspoon or two of maple syrup, mixed up with a bunch of button mushrooms that you've cut into slices, roasted in the oven until it gets kind of like dried out. My goodness, is that a delicious dish. So, gochugaru, right? Let me throw another one at you here on the recommendation list. As I take a sip of it's like the best margarita I've ever made. Can a drink be better than a margarita? Wow, is that good? Oh yeah, maybe it's a Paloma. I had grapefruits, pink, big, fat grapefruits in the house with like pink skin, because I picked a bag up of them at Costco. And I have so many grapefruits that when I was looking for something to mix my tequila with this evening, I mixed it with fresh squeezed grapefruit juice and a little hit of the, what do you call that sweetener there? You know what I'm talking about. Well, anyway, a little sweetener, and some of the grapefruit juice and tequila. And I'll tell you what, man, that's actually better than a margarita. That is good. Where were we? I was talking about kimchi, and now I want to go into mirin. I've been using mirin a lot, and part of the reason I'm telling you about the Korean ingredients is because I guess I found that if I needed like new taste stimulation, and my training was certainly in the area of kind of like, French, so European. So I'm accustomed to using, a lot of stuff that's, that we all know. That's, French seasonings, Italian seasonings, Spanish seasonings, et cetera, New Mexican seasoning. But like, then your palate wants to expand and you look at some other things. So, one of the things that I've been cooking with lately, I mean, we all use, soy. And I'm going to tell you something, by the way. If you have like ginger, right, and you have garlic, and you have scallions, you've got the base of a nice Asian kind of mirepoix. I mean, like a flavor base, if you will. Every cuisine, most cuisines have a flavor base. So the French use the mirepoix, which is the combination of carrot, celery, and onion. And, then there's one for New Orleans where there's green pepper involved. And, if you look at Asian food, a lot of it, starts with garlic, ginger, scallion, certainly. And those are all fresh. And then you have kind of the liquid, additions, condiments, like, soy sauce, right? You have sesame oil made from sesame, seeds. You have mirin. There's rice wine vinegar, great, because you're going to need the acidic element when you're doing that kind of cooking. And then there's mirin, which is a condiment used in Japanese cuisine that's kind of like a rice wine or a sake, but it doesn't have that kind of, it doesn't have like an alcohol content. It just has a higher sugar content, and not because they've added sugar, they haven't, but because it's formed with the rice during the fermentation process. So mirin is sweet, right? It's a sweet kind of rice wine. And I'm going to tell you something. If you have some soy and you have some sesame oil and you have some mirin, you're in good shape. Or even soy and mirin. Like, because soy is going to be super salty, mirin is going to be sweet, so you're already kind of inflaming two of your palate's kind of key receptors, the salty and the sweet. So mirin is on my list of things to recommend to you. One of the things I have been making lately is the salmon, and I'm not even a guy that loves salmon, but I will tell you that when you have soy sauce or tamari, which basically is kind of like a soy sauce, it's just that it's wheat-free, both good. But when you have soy, and then you have a little shot of the mirin, you have the sweet and the salty, don't hesitate to put a drop, it's very strong, sesame oil, but don't hesitate if you have that to put that into a blend. Now, let me tell you, add to that fresh ginger, grated a little bit, garlic, pressed in there a little bit, scallion or not, cilantro or not, you've got a fantastic sauce. Whether you marinate with it, whether you put it on top, whether you dip dumplings into it, like that combination of ingredients is killer. Soy, sesame, mirin, fresh garlic, ginger, scallion, if you have cilantro. Why cilantro? Because I think, like, if I say cilantro, most people ordinarily, and it's totally understandable, would associate cilantro with the country of Mexico. Guacamole, or that green stuff over there. I'm a lover. I get that there's people have a genetic predisposition. There are some people that can't tolerate cilantro. Okay, fine. You won't be having my guacamole. But also cilantro in Asia is, they call it Chinese parsley. Very common in Asian cuisine. So if you have it, it certainly makes sense in this, whether you use this thing I'm describing to you as a marinade or as a dipping sauce or whatever, you start putting together those ingredients. It's just great. It's just beautiful flavoring. In cooking soy and making in anything, frankly, any kind of protein, any kind of vegetable. Like you start dropping, fresh garlic, ginger, scallion, soy, sesame, maybe a touch of mirin, maybe a touch of that kind of thing. That's a beautiful, beautiful sauce. I will throw one other Asian ingredient into the mix now as a recommendation to you. And again, I'm giving you this now because I'm only recently starting to kind of cook more often with this stuff. But I'm cooking for a long time, and I made some dish last week that I thought was one of the tastiest things that I had ever made. I had never made anything like it, but the base of the flavoring came from miso. Miso. Now you might recognize the name miso because you go to the Japanese restaurant, they serve miso soup. It's not so much like that. I wouldn't get kind of hung up on, I don't like miso soup. I've heard that before, and that's fine. Miso is a traditional Japanese seasoning. They ferment soybeans with salt and some other stuff called koji, and sometimes there's rice involved, sometimes seaweed. You end up with this kind of thick paste that you can use either for a sauce or to a spread. You can pickle vegetables with it. And when it's mixed with kind of a soup stock that's made with dashi, which is another Japanese herb, that's where you get your miso soup. Miso is good. It's salty, but the flavor varies. I use red organic miso, by the way. And so you get a little salty, you get a little sweet, you get earthy, you get fruity, you get savory. I love me some miso. So here's what I'm going to tell you, quick like. I took chicken thighs last week. You can imagine where I purchased them, by the gross over at Costco. And over there, again, you can get them kind of on the bone with the skin. You can get them off the bone and skinless, in which case they're organic. I got them that way, fine. And then I saw a recipe, and the recipe was for... Let me tell you exactly what the recipe. Miso chicken in ginger, leek, and scallion broth. Now, I don't know how that sounds to you, but every once in a while I see a recipe and I go, oh, you know what? I will actually make that. And I don't go for recipes that have more than like 5 ingredients. It's just, it turns me off. My eyes start to shut. But miso chicken and ginger, leek, and scallion broth, I decide I'm going to go for. And part of the reason I did is because I actually had some of those ingredients on hand. I still had to go out and get the actual miso, right, which comes in a tub. I got a tub of miso. What did I get here? Where is that miso? Come here, baby. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I got it. It's called Miso Master Organic Traditional Red Miso. That's the brand. I think I picked mine up over at the Whole Foods. But Miso Master, they sell everywhere. Gluten-free, no yeast, American-made organic miso since 1979. Gluten-free, premium, aged for a year, Japanese technique, organic. Made from, soybeans, rice koji, sun-dried sea salt, Blue Ridge Mountain well water, important, and koji spores, which, anyway, because that's how the thing gets fermented. Miso Master Organic, a traditional red miso, great, right? So I'm making a dish last week after seeing the recipe in the Times, and I don't know, the Times locks you out if you don't pay for the subscription, so I can only see kind of what the ingredients are, even though I can't see how to make the thing. I figured the rest of it out. But you got chicken thighs, and you got some garlic and ginger, important. right? And then you got some chicken broth, and even for that, frankly, they say optional, like you could use water. Then there's a quarter cup of the mirin that I mentioned to you. There's the sweet. 4 tablespoons of yellow or red miso, right? There's gochujang, the Korean red pepper flakes that I tell you about, and then they want some red wine vinegar, and then come in the leeks and the scallions. Well, this, I'm telling you, man, this is one of the greatest tasting things I had ever made. And since I was making it anyway, and it's all about like how you make that broth all satisfying, I threw in, what do you call those green, those lovely green, those snow peas. I threw in mushrooms. So good. And I even found these noodles to put in there, that were great. I'm still salivating over the thought of that meal. So, long story short, a lot of recommendations there in the Asian food family for those of you who are cooking. The miso, the mirin, the kimchi, which you can buy also, by the way, in most of your department stores. I think Mother-in-Law's is certainly a great brand of kimchi. Gochujang, which I just love. I actually threw some of that in this recipe that I just told you about. And so all of that Korean stuff, and if you can get to a Korean restaurant, especially one that specializes in, there's a grill at the table, and they're like literally making the dish right at your table. That stir fry right there. I just love that experience. The Koreans have an alcoholic beverage called shoju, shoju. Gotta assume they make that with rice. Kind of, and made to basically, I don't know, somewhere between, call it a vodka, whiskey, a sake, whatever you want to call it. It's booze, shoju, and it's potent, but it's very common for them to sell flavors. Like, hey, would you like the peach flavored shoju? Yeah. So the peach flavored shoju was, it's fantastic. If you like peach, and I do. Right. Over to this week at Costco, and so here are my recommendations. There is a product. I actually have the bag in front of me, but you'll, I suppose, be interested to know that the bag is now empty. And this is no regular bag of snack chips, because this bag is from Costco, which means 567 grams. It appears as if I ate 1 pound, 4 ounces of Off the Beaten Path veggie crisps. I suppose you don't have to get it in the camp-size bag. Well, you do if you shop at Costco. Non-GMO. No artificial, real veggies, off the beaten path, snacks for the curious, veggie crisps made with rice and real vegetables, peas and black beans. Off the beaten path, my friends, is a recommendation from me to you. It might have been one of those things that they sampled there, or it may have just been something that one of my kids picked up. And the first time I tasted it, I thought, well, it's got a nice crunch. I like the flavor. I just don't really, I've never had anything kind of, I don't know, it seems like unusual. I don't remember having anything like that. It wasn't a potato chip. It wasn't a corn chip. It was a rice chip with a great crunch and great to look at, because it's got nice little colors in it, because again, it's made with there's some black beans in the thing and like little tiny bits, right? And I went from that's interesting to a full-fledged addiction, to the point where now when everybody else comes home, they will see that the 1 pound, 4 ounce bag, I don't know how many servings, let's see how many servings that went from rice, peas, and black beans. Very pretty. Let's see, 20 servings. Oops. There are 20 servings in that package of Off the Beaten Path, and I'm going to take responsibility for what appears to be about 15 of them. You can get this online. I don't know if you can get it online if you're an Instacart, but otherwise, or an Amazon. But you can also pick it up at Sam's Club, Target, Walmart, Kroger, or as I did in the camp size version at the Costco, Off the Beaten Path. You should know also, by the way, as long as we're on it, that while I go in for the veggie crisps, apparently they have veggie puffs, spicy cheddar. They have veggie puffs, sour cream and onion. They have hummus crisps, rosemary and olive oil, chickpea veggie crisps, rice, chickpeas, and black beans, blah, 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 blah. Off the Beaten Path. My recommendation to you. What is next on the list? Here's next on the list. And again, this is for me, a Costco item. This one's expensive, my friends, but I like it a real lot. And the beauty of it is it's so deliciously, fragrantly kind of rich that you don't have to use a lot of it. So it says it's a 20 ounce, well, let's see what is that. 20 ounce. How many ounces is this? This is no way this is 20. This is 1 pound. Oh. 20 ounces, yeah, 1 pound, 475. I have, 20 ounces. Oh, yeah, that is more than a pound, isn't it? It's a pound and almost 5 ounces of the product called, excuse me for the noise. Oh, so annoying that I can't even open. Don't you hate packaging these days? Can't even fucking open. All right, here we go. Yeah. So, sorry, the grain-free Autumn's Gold. So here's the brand. Autumn's Gold, maple, almond butter, grain-free granola. It's a granola that I'm talking about here. It happens to be flavored with both maple syrup and almond butter. And it also has in it some coconut, some sunflower seeds. Coconut oil seems to be the oil ingredient. Almond butter, as I mentioned. There's some salt, cinnamon, vanilla extract, and sunflower oil. And I'm going to tell you something, boy. This is gorgeous food. Grain-free, so I guess that means also gluten-free, non-GMO, paleo certified. It's $18 at your Instacart, which means it's probably cost $15 for this bag over at the Costco. So, but what I'm saying to you is, how many portions does it have? This thing, 22. It says 22 portions. I'm going to say it's closer to 35 or 40, because you don't want, I don't use it as a cereal, right? If I have a bowl of fruit in the morning and I put a scoop of almond butter in it, you put a handful of these things in, of this in there. The crunch is great. The taste is amazing. I love this stuff. It's called Autumn's Gold grain-free granola. As I said, all the places that it's available, but you can, as I did, that's a Costco pickup. Coming to you now with a product. Let me just grab, I can't even begin to tell you how good this drink is. I think a Paloma is generally made with tequila and grapefruit juice, so that's what this is. And then agave, and that's what I use. So the third ingredient in the margarita is some sweetening element, and that element is agave. A little touch of agave for the sweetness. The grapefruit juice offers up the acidity. The tequila is the tequila. This is fantastic. Wow, it's good. Recommendation. Coming to you, my friends. What do I have on this list? Oh, yeah. Vegetable forward. Unbelievable. Finex, it's called. Finex. It's a skillet. The skillet is, the skillet I'm going to recommend to you is made by a company called Finex. And they sent it to me, and I believe they sent it to me a year ago. I am under no obligation. I feel no pressure. The full disclosure is that they sent it. It's entirely up to me to talk about it or not. But here's the good news. I've used it for a year. I love this thing. Finex skillets, designed to be the most loved piece in your kitchen, destined to be an heirloom. Well, you know, sometimes you look at that copy and you go, is that just a little bit too much? Is that just a little bit of hyperbole? But here's the thing about cast iron. Cast iron lasts for a very, very, very long time. It's not unusual to be working with your grandparents, your grandma's, cast iron pan, right? You go into a kitchen in the South where they're frying chicken in cast iron. They've been frying chicken in that cast iron for 58 years. Why cast iron, you ask? And the answer is because it's super heavy duty, because it conducts heat really well, because it's good to cook in. It's good to, it's got a depth to it and a richness to it, and it lasts forever, and you can use it on top of the stove, and then you can put it in the oven too, and I like it a lot. The one thing, of course, that you cannot do with cast iron, because it's heavy, is you don't flip things around, There's no sautéing in cast iron. Sauté, as I've explained before, is the French word for jump. When you see vegetables jumping around in a pan and a chef is doing that kind of manipulation, it is a sauté, because it's a perpetual motion. It's a movement for which you need a pan that you can, flip around. That's not happening with cast iron. Cast iron is going down on the stove, and it's not moving, and it's going to get nice and hot. It's great when you want to cook in it a steak or a chicken thigh, with or without the skin, even better with the skin, or a nice juicy burger. Or you go the other way and you say, you know what, I'm going to make some pancakes in that thing. And you don't clean a cast iron pan so much as you rinse it and season it, as they say. It kind of creates over time its own flavor. You can go to any hardware store and buy a piece of cast iron pan for not a ton of money. It's affordable, right? I don't know offhand what it is, but I'll tell you this. If you're buying Finex, you're going to pay a lot more than that. Because this stuff is kind of, honestly, it's special. Everyone has to decide on their own what the cost value kind of relationship and benefit is. I'm not telling you that you need to spend, $250 on your new, cast iron skillet. I'm saying that is available to you. What I love about this is how, there's a couple of things. It's shaped differently. It's got 8 kind of rounded corners. It comes with a lid, a perfectly, fitting lid, which I use if I'm doing kind of braising. It's got the ingenious part of the Finex skillet, by the way, is what they call the spring handle. And somehow they were able to create a handle on the pan that doesn't reach the heat of the rest of the pan. So this is super important to know. If you cook with cast iron, you don't want to you don't want to have that pan on top of the heat for 20 minutes on high heat where you're cooking your, steak or whatever it is. You don't want to touch the handle of the pan because you're going to the hospital with that 3rd degree burn. In the case of Finex, there is a spring handle that doesn't reach that temperature. The lid is great. The pan is good looking. Most importantly, I like the way that it works. And I do believe it's a lot more money. Just for, comparison's sake, I'm pretty sure you can spend, $35 to $50. You want to get a regular cast iron pan, and it'd be perfectly good at the hardware store. And this looks to me like it's going to be in the $230, $250 range with the lid, and But I tell you, I love the pan. Love the pan. Vegetables. I feel like I'm moving subjects here, and this next subject is vegetables. And I don't know that I even have a recommendation. Well, I do actually have a recommendation, but I feel like this is going to be the decade of the vegetable. It's all I'm really hearing about these days is plant-based and vegetarian, and what are they calling that? Beyond Meat. Have you had that? What do you think of that Beyond Meat product? I have not yet had the Beyond Meat burger that they're selling, but I did pick up some Beyond Meat Italian sausage because I wanted to try it. I'm not in a position to recommend that because while I had it and I thought it was fine, it's not the kind of thing I would recommend one way or the other. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. You may love it. It certainly, I shouldn't say certainly, it's cleaner. It would appear to me than eating, a sausage made with pork and pork fat, and it tasted fine, but I don't know, there was a certain mealiness to it. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. But I think we're coming to the decade of the vegetable. And that's not, I suppose, there's something to be said about plant-based. The problem is that in our country, we have a tendency to go overboard, right? So now, there's so much news and information and hype coming out that there's even a backlash. As people kind of don't trust what it is that they're hearing and hear conflicting reports, there's a backlash, which is kind of keeping people from changing, a lot of people from changing their behavior and moving into more, plant-based food. Nobody in their right mind is going to argue that eating more plants and eating less meat is a bad thing. It's good. There's no question that that's good. It's good for you. It's good for the planet. It's good for everybody if there's more vegetables consumed and less meat, generally speaking. As an example of some of the things that I'm seeing, I have access, I get invited to stuff here. Decade. Starting today, Jan 15, the Questlove cheesesteak is now available across all 19 New York City Fresh and Company locations. I've never been to a Fresh and Company. It's a collab. Oh, they don't call it a collaboration. It's a collab with Questlove. You guys know Questlove? Questlove is the drummer of The Roots. You see him on the Jimmy Fallon show every night. Anyway, in addition to his drum playing, he's a food guy. He likes food, he likes cooking, whatever. Collaboration with Questlove is part of Fresh and Company's new 2020 winter menu of 100% vegetarian selections, including vegan breakfast, lunch, dinner. Plant-based alternatives in their winter menu will also include a winter roots salad, Italian, blah, blah, blah. Beyond breakfast. Coming soon, my friends, on the menu, the Impossible Meatball Parm. I don't know. I'm going to go with Impossible. When I have a meatball, I guess my point here is, I didn't know what my point was until I just actually, it came to me. If I'm going to have a meatball palm, but I don't know. If I'm going to have a meatball palm, I'd actually like it with meatballs. Because I think you can, at this point, I can tell the difference. Questlove cheesecake is a vegetarian sandwich made with plant-based Impossible meat and served with cheese sauce, banana pepper relish on an Amoroso's roll. And the good news is a percentage of all Questlove cheesecake sales will be donated to the Food Education Fund at Food and Finance High School. Yeah, whatever. I don't know. I like Questlove. I suppose I like cheesesteak. I'll have to try it and let you know. Generally, if I were going to have cheesesteak, I would have it with steak versus a vegetarian. I don't know. I don't mean to be small-minded. I'm open to anything. I bought the Beyond Meat sausages. Fine. Maybe the burgers are better. I don't know. Here's another example of a decade worth that we'll be facing of vegetable, plant-based things. And I'm not putting it out with an attitude. I'm just telling you, here's what's what. Stanford Inn and Resort offers personalized family workshops to help overcome picky eating. Plant-based Mendocino resort, right? So this is a plant-based resort, Mendocino. I don't have to tell you that's going to be in California. They do things like that ahead of everybody else. Children and parents will cook together, learn nutrition as a team, and participate in family art and creativity workshops to build long-term healthy living habits. Stanford Inn and Resort. It's offering families a chance to grab an apron and get cooking, all in the name of healthy habits. Vacation package, unique opportunity for parents and their children to slow down, come together, play together, and learn together. In theory, it's a lovely idea. For you and your family to go on a vacation where you do some cooking together and you learn. It's actually a super kind of smart, very forward-thinking idea. A vacation with the kids where there is education involved and good eating, cleaning, and learning for a lifetime. Who's going to argue with that? Speaking of vegetables, my friends, if you happen to be in the New York City area and you're listening to this sometime before next Thursday, which I believe is 23rd. Yes, the 23rd of January. I'll be actually offering up a class. I like to call it. It's a cooking class. There's no question about that. It's a relatively small size because everybody gets a place at the table, if you will, a place at the island, which is to say a cutting board and a knife, and together. It's a very hands-on, very interactive class, and I'm doing all vegetables, right? I am reminded of the subject because, we're talking about vegetables. I'm doing a class next Thursday night in New York City, where for 2 hours, for the first 2 hours, we're going to be cutting, and we're going to be chopping, and we're going to be cooking, and we're going to be making pea soup from scratch, which I just adore. We're going to be making buffalo calamari, which is just lovely and delicious and a little bit, spicy and, caramelized buffalo. It's lovely. I don't fry it, by the way, which you could, but I make it a cleaner version of it. We are going to be making a classic risotto. I'm thinking we're going to go straight up on the risotto, but certainly if I see mushrooms or, whatever, if they have mushrooms around, maybe we'll do like a mushroom risotto or not. What's the other veg we're going to do in there? Hang on, let me just think. There's another vegetable in the mix. Let me see if I see this. I have no idea. Okay, right. I know there's another thing. Right. The biscuits. I love making those. I'm making pink peppercorn biscuits. They're just yummyish. They just kind of crumble. They're good with the soup. They're good with the thing. They're good with all of that stuff. Lovely. And then the final thing is we're going to make a dessert, which, I don't know, I try to keep it simple. Sometimes we dip fruit like strawberries in chocolate. We make chocolate dip things. Sometimes I do some bananas, like a cinnamon kind of sauteed bananas that you can put over vanilla ice cream. Anyway, if you happen to be around, that's next Thursday evening. Here in New York City, New York, limited size of that class. So if you're interested, figure out how to get in touch with me, which you can do in one of, 3 ways. You can find Short Order Dad on Instagram. You can find Short Order Dad on Facebook. You can email me, shortorderdad@gmail.com. Or if you're a Twitter person, I think you have to actually, Twitter, Short Order Dad. That makes sense. Instagram, a little bit different. That's real Rob Rosenthal. You can see what I'm eating. Whereas on Twitter, I'm talking about food. So anyway, I'm easy to reach, shortorderdad@gmail.com. If you have questions about the class, if you have questions about recipes, if you have questions about anything in your life that I might be able to answer. The recommendation show, my friends, here on the 15th of January, the middle of winter. Lovely. Happy to be with you all. Now that you know how to find me, I will also remind you that I am coming back here next Wednesday Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I believe we'll be having a conversation with my friend Kelly, who is a prolific writer who writes about the kind of stuff that we like here on the show. Food, travel, alcohol, quite the expert. She's fun, so we'll get her on next week, I believe. And what else can I tell you? If you're interested, I don't hesitate to tell you that there is a book that I have written. The book is Short Order Dad, One Guy's Guide to Making Food Fun and Hassle-Free. That book is available to you on all the places online that sell books, including the obvious, which is Amazon. Go ahead and read the reviews. I'm happy with that. I love what people said about the book. I'm never more pleased than when I hear someone has actually taken it, used one of the recipes, found it easy to make, more importantly, found it delicious. So there's that. And I guess that's it for today. Jimmy, Jimmy, if you're in the studio, I've pretty much exhausted the subject material on tonight's show. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out. Okay, all right. Well, there you go. You're saying a minute, and I'm saying it's going to be even less than that, my friend. Thanks to you folks, Jimmy. Thanks to you for producing, as always, in the studio. This has been episode 72 of All You Can Eat, back next Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern. And my friends, I will remind you, as I always do at the conclusion of every single show, life is short, so never waste a meal.
I'm the Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on